after taking over 12 hours in the air upon departing from the Joint Base Andrews near Washington, D.C. in the afternoon of October 12, 2025 Eastern Time. The U.S. President Donald Trump's Air Force One that had traveled approximately 9,463 kilometers landed at the Ben Gurion International Airport near Tel Aviv at approximately 9 a.m. local time on October 13, 2025, to mark his arrival in Israel, for the scheduled under 5-hour brief visit to the Middle Eastern country, amidst the culmination of a Gaza ceasefire agreement that ended the 2-year war between Israel and Hamas. At the airport, the American leader was being waited to be received by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife Sara Netanyahu, as well as the Israeli President Isaac Herzog and his wife Michal Herzog, together with several American and Israeli delegations. But one crucial incident that caught our attention was the decision by the Potus to share a ride in the Beast with the Israeli Prime Minister and his wife, together with his daughter Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner, and not with the President of Israel Isaac Herzog. The American leader disembarked from the Air Force One amidst fanfare and the warm reception performance from members of the Israeli military that had converged at the airport, and had a lot of people to greet and chat with at the foot of the plane, in addition to the aforementioned ones being the U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, Israeli Ambassador to the U.S. Michal Herzog, U.S. Middle East peace negotiator Steve Witkoff among others. And during the various exchanges, President Trump made yet another spontaneous departure from the norm, just like how he did when he met the Russian President Vladimir Putin on August 15, 2025 in Anchorage, Alaska, by inviting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife Sarah to ride with him in the Beast, en route to the Knesset in Jerusalem along Israel's famous Highway 1. The U.S. President was finalizing his chit-chats with the Israeli President and Prime Minister together with their wives as he prepared to get into the Cadillac One for him to be chauffeured directly to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv when his daughter Ivanka Trump, who had a few minutes earlier given him a warm peck on both cheeks as she greeted him at the Ben Gurion International Airport tarmac in the company of her husband Jared Kushner, approached him. Immediately after spotting Ivanka Trump, who has shown up at the airport in a stunning cream white cape detailed dress, the Israeli First Lady Michal Herzog mumbled something to her, before she proceeded to facing her father where she had a brief word with him, and amidst their exchanges, President Trump gestured to her to enter into the Beast, a gesture that she observed accordingly by moving towards the left side of the Beast, and seconds later, President Trump did the same to Prime Minister Netanyahu's wife Sarah. The two ladies and their husbands followed each other into the Beast through the left door, with Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner leading the way, as Sara Netanyahu, who was dressed in royal blue, and her husband Benjamin Netanyahu closely followed behind. Inside the Beast, Ivanka Trump, her husband Jared Kushner and Prime Minister Netanyahu's wife seated facing the back, while President Donald Trump, who was the only person allowed to enter the Beast through the right door, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, seated facing the front. The two leaders would then engage in a seemingly interesting conversation while inside the Beast as they waited for the security and protocol unit in charge of their motorcade to set everything in place for them to leave for Jerusalem. As seen here, the Beast was sandwiched between two Chevrolet Suburbans that had been flown in from the US, with one in the front and another one at the back, and they were probably carrying an integrated and combined Secret Service and Shin Bet agents for President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu's protection. Flanking the limousine on the sides were an Israeli road clearance police car on the left, an Israeli state-owned Land Cruiser signal jammer slightly following behind on the right, a Cadillac One decoy on the right, and another signal jammer in front of the motorcade. And by the way, before entering into the Cadillac One, President Trump spoke with the Israeli President Herzog and his wife for a few more seconds, then greeted them off as they headed towards their own vehicle that was to ferry them to Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office confirmed their invitation into the Beast as an unscripted gesture by President Trump, and President Isaac Herzog, who is largely a ceremonial president, was not included in the limo ride. The exclusion of the Israeli president in the Beast aligns with diplomatic custom, where the U.S. president would prioritize the executive head of government, who is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, for substantive discussions, like in such a 45-minute transit to Jerusalem. President Herzog's role is more symbolic, often reserved for formal state welcomes rather than operational functions like this short policy-focused drive, and inasmuch as he participated in the reception ceremony at the airport, he and his wife had to separately return to Jerusalem. Anyway, the significance of this gesture by President Trump is that the invitation symbolized a profound personal and political reconciliation between Trump and Netanyahu, whose relationship had frayed during Trump's first term over issues like the January 6, 2021 U.S. Capitol riot, which Netanyahu initially condemned, as well as policy divergences on Gaza. By 2025, however, they had mended ties, with Trump publicly praising Netanyahu for what he termed as his great job in the Gaza war and hostage negotiations. So their riding together underscored unity and trust, depicting a visible show of alliance amid the ceasefire's success, reinforcing U.S.-Israel solidarity since Trump already touted the deal as historic. The inclusion of Sara Netanyahu, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner in the beast also added a familial touch, humanizing the leaders and creating a rare courtesy that emphasized the warm personal bond between the leaders during that celebratory moment for Israel. This breaking of protocol to host the Israeli leader in the beast also exhibited a symbolic power, where it highlighted Trump's dealmaker persona, echoing past gestures like hosting Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago in Florida, but it contrasted with public Israeli sentiments, where crowds in Tel Aviv's hostages square cheered Trump but booed Netanyahu for allegedly prolonging the war.
המסדר יעבור לדום. מסדר דום. המסדר חוצה. נה!